Hello everyone, it's week 8. This week we're going to focus on creative processes, and Creativity Quest 2 is due by noon this Saturday, February 29th. You don't have to upload anything to D2L to submit your work, just make sure that your marker is complete and posted on our shared Google Map. In this short video, I'm going to talk a bit about creative processes, daily routines, and habits, and the importance of knowing the ways in which you best work. I'll also preview our week 8 readings, cases, and Spark. This week is going to set us up well for after spring break, where we're really going to dig into brainstorming, inventing, and ideating. In middle or high school, you might have had a poster like this hanging in your classroom. This is a clear, succinct way to represent the writing process. First, you invent or pre-write. Then you create outlines and make notes about what you want to write about. Then you write, you create a draft, you revise, and you edit it before sharing it. This is tidy, but I don't think it's accurate. Most writers edit across the writing process. Most writers pre-write and invent across the writing task. I recently created this image for a book I wrote a few years ago, presenting a romanticized notion of the media composing process. Let's say this person is working on a short public service video. We might think she gathers clips, writes a script, selects music, and then sequences them together. Realistically, though, it's a lot messier than that. When I put together these weekly class videos, I have some of the music identified. I have a script, I write and revise. I gather images, then have to sift through them and figure out what I want to use. I find or rip video clips, I record myself, I edit the music, I do some screencasting, I edit the screencasting, I tweak my script, I re-record pieces. This isn't a clear, clean, linear process. And neither is the creative process. And I would argue there isn't even such a thing as the creative process. If you do a search for creative process online, you'll find images like this and this. You might also come across some representations of paths to success like this. And one more. If you search for creative process, you might find quotes from famous people like J.J. Abrams, who said, "The creative process is a bit like driving in the fog. One often has a sense of one's destination, but the journey may end up taking some surprising twists and turns." To pull our attention back to a quote from earlier this semester, Linda Nyman said, "Creativity involves two processes, thinking, then producing. If you have ideas but you don't act on them, you're imaginative but not creative." And being creative is not a magic on or off switch or something that people just magically have. Creativity requires tools, strategies, and steps. It requires a process. Some creative process steps include Charlie Gilkey's preparation, incubation, illumination, and implementation, or Jessica Stillman's preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification. And verification, I think, is a hugely important part of the creative process. Verification might mean creating or producing some sort of proof of concept, evidence that your idea is viable. Verification might be user testing through a focus group or an initial launch of a product, the beta version of an app. Verification might mean formal assessment by an industry group or special consultant. James Taylor offers 5 similar stages: preparation, incubation, insight, evaluation. I think evaluation here is a precept to what Stillman's verification is, and elaboration. Tiffany Schlein's list is a bit more extensive. It starts with the hunch. You think you've got an idea, but you're not sure where to go with it. So you talk about it. You talk the ideas through with people. You sponge up ideas from everywhere to help nurture your idea. Then you build, you create, you make, you do. You get confused. Everyone faces a moment in a project where they lose sight of their goals or question their idea. So you just step away. You take a breather. And then there's the love sandwich, where you love and you nurture your idea. You have a premature breakthroughlation. Many small breakthroughs happen across projects. Some are better than others. So you revisit your notes, you go back, you review your processes, and you know when you're done. Those are some steps. Part of the creative process has to do with the when and the where. There are some fantastic representations of the daily schedules of the famously creative, like Maya Angelou. Interestingly, she did most of her work in hotel or motel rooms, both as she traveled and by preference. I have a colleague who, when he needs to get a significant amount of writing done, like a draft of a book, he'll check into a hotel for 2 or 3 weeks and pretty much lock himself in because he can work there without distraction. This is Beethoven's typical daily schedule. Darwin's, which is a bit more varied than Angelou's or Beethoven's. Tchaikovsky's. And another visual representation of creative processes, including sleep, day job, food, exercise, and other. There are 2 things I find pretty interesting about these. First, they're almost all white guys of the same social and economic class and generally the same time frame, except for Maya Angelou, a more recent writer. Second, all of these people worked before the internet and the web and social media. So I wonder what sort of influence these technologies might have on today's famously creative people. There's a great BuzzFeed article by Arianna Rebellini on the daily habits of creative people, and she argues they get moving, they take naps, they daydream, they collaborate, they take risks, they make and stick to a routine, they explore, they pay attention, they forgive bad work, they fail forward and learn from mistakes, they take time to be alone. Looking at the processes of people is really interesting, but it shouldn't limit us. These aren't the only processes. I'd suggest 2 things. Recognize your own process and adopt habits rather than focus on a particular process. And what's most important here, I think, is knowing your work habits and embracing creative processes that facilitate them. For instance, I still keep a paper planner. I use that as a tool to keep track of where I need to be and what I need to be working on. I also have a to-do list saved as a Word doc on my desktop. It's the first thing I open every morning. And at the top, I have big deadlines, mainly by month, and then I have daily priorities. I get into work by 7 a.m., so I usually have at least an hour or so of quiet time where I can get emails answered and initial work done and consult my to-do list. I also try to leave by 5 o'clock and try not to bring work home with me on work days. Along with tools to calendar priorities and keep track of where you need to be when, there are tools for project mapping and project management. One of the most important critical skills I think you should leave college with is the ability to see the forest and see the trees, to see big projects and break them down into manageable parts with deadlines and deliverables. A few years ago, I worked on a project for the governor's office. We're a huge team with reps from the governor's office, from 3 different offices at MSU, reps from the community, and reps from an ad agency in Detroit that was contracted to help us with the project. At every meeting, the first thing we do is open a project map on a big screen, and each team would report on their priorities. It was incredibly helpful in seeing the parts of a big moving picture. You can create your own maps and calendars like this one. This is the editorial and publication calendar for a special issue of an academic journal I co-edited. My co-editor and I launched the project in November 2017. It will be published this August. We did the last work on our end in January before moving everything over to the publisher. There's 2 of us working on this with pretty firm deadlines. There's some moving pieces, but it's a project that the 2 of us could manage with a simple calendar created in a Google Doc table. This is a project plan a graduate student who was working on her dissertation last year created. She mapped out deadlines by which she planned to send me draft chapters. The original deadlines were in orange. The revised realistic deadlines were in green X's. And the deadlines by which I promised I'd send her a response and comments to her drafts are the blue plus signs. Beyond homegrown tables and tools, though, there are great apps out there to help you manage projects. Patio is one. You can see the main tabs at the top: activity, projects, deliverables, and meetings. ProofHub is another. And here we can see a project overview tab, discussions, tasks, calendar, notes, files, and more. What we're looking at in this view is a Gantt chart, which is a fairly common tool for mapping project milestones across time. Most of the tools provide a view like this from WorkZone, which lets us see a snapshot of project work. And we can see that 10% of our current projects are on task, 50% are at risk or close to failing, and 40% are late. One of the most popular project management tools out there is Basecamp.
Hi, this is a quick demonstration of Basecamp. Now, if you're interested in Basecamp, you're probably starting to notice that managing your business just with email chains and file attachments and meetings isn't good enough anymore. Things start to get chaotic and slip through the cracks, and you need some kind of a system to stay on top of everything. And that's what Basecamp is. It's one organized place for your projects, teams, and company-wide communication. Now let me show you how it works. This is a marketing project we're doing right now. Everybody who's involved with the project sees the same thing here. We use the message board to post updates and gather feedback on work that we're doing. This is so much better than messy email chains because you can see the whole story from top to bottom. All the responses are on the record, and it's easy to get back to it. In the to-do section, I can assign work and see what's done and what's not done without having to remind people and nag them for status all the time. The schedule shows important dates and deadlines, and the Docs and Files is a place for images, assets, and files that we want everyone to be able to find easily. Finally, the Campfire is a simple chat room. I use it if I have a question for the group and I'm not quite sure who to ask. This is just one project out of many, each with a different set of people, all organized and running at the same time. In addition to projects, we also have our teams in Basecamp. Customer service, marketing, operations, they all use the same set of tools to coordinate. Finally, we have a place for things that everybody in the whole company needs to see. We call it the HQ. My favorite feature here is the automatic check-ins. This automatically asks a question at the end of the day like, what did you work on today? People answer when they have time, and their answers bubble up to everybody else. This way, everybody knows what everybody else in the company is doing without wasting time on boring status meetings.
I would encourage you the next time you're nurturing an idea or working on a piece of homework or a project, take some time to reflect on how you're doing the work that you're doing. You might first think about how you creatively approach a task. Does exercise help you get your brain going? Do you work best in the morning, late at night? Think back to last week. What sort of spaces best facilitate your creative work? Then maybe do a tool inventory. What are the things you have to have at hand to work on a project, to be creative? And think broadly. Of course, you might need an internet connection and your phone, but do you need pencils? Do you need coffee? Do you need carbs? Do you need other things around you? If you've never done so, you might keep a work log for a couple of days or a week. Keep track of what you're doing and when. Pay attention to when you're most productive, when you're most creative. Getting to know your own daily habits and creative approaches is a really good starting point to your own creative process. Then you can look at other people's advice and ideas and see what works for you. And be that human satellite dish. Pay attention to how you see others, especially maybe mentors or people you admire, managing their time and projects. What tools do they use? What do they rely on to help them manage tasks and hit deadlines and be creative? We've covered a lot of ground here, but our Week 8 focus is creative processes. We have 2 readings. The first is a chapter by Langdon Morris, Moses Ma, and Po Chi Woo called Cultivating Core Creativity. The second reading is from Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist. Pablo Picasso is widely quoted as saying, "Good artists borrow, great artists steal." Or from Kleon's perspective, you don't have to be a creative genius. You just need to be yourself and seek out the creativity that's around you. Our first creativity case is a TED Talk by Shinpei Takahashi, where he shares a word game that he uses to come up with new ideas. Our second creativity case is a video that shows an activity that Carl Good, a recently retired professor here from MSU who I've mentioned in class before, has his students do in one of his classes. It's a creative process activity related to divergent thinking. And there's one spark for this week. Explore MSU's Student Marketplace, a site where MSU launched goods are available and you can read more about MSU entrepreneurs. Explore our Week 8 readings, cases, and sparks. Post a question and 2 responses to Packback, and make sure that your map marker for Creativity Quest 2 is up and posted by this Saturday at noon. Have a fantastic spring break.